Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast. How confident are you when it comes to life's biggest money decisions? What is real financial peace and how can you get it? Kris Flaming and Mark Peachy are the founders of LPF Advisors in Sarasota, Florida. They bring together the brightest minds to show you how to have a more confident financial future. They empower listeners with common sense concepts and financial wisdom. And now, here are your hosts, LPF Advisors. Hey, I want to welcome everybody to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors. I am your host here, Kris Flaming, as always. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming Carmen DeLutri to the show. He is the founder and president of DeLutri Law. Carmen leads a team of relentless advocates in the business of providing hope and advice to make the best possible legal decisions when facing difficult circumstances, focusing on personal injury cases in the state of Florida. Carmen, thanks for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, let's have some fun. So you have kind of interesting history. I was researching your background online, not stalking you, but I was just doing some general searches. So maybe take me through just a brief history of kind of what led you to where you are today.
It's a combination of a lot of things, Kris, but let me start. I grew up in New Jersey. And my mom and dad owned a Sunoco gas station. So a lot of life lessons were learned in that gas station. Let me tell you, I was pumping gas when I was probably 4 years old. And up there, everything is, you got to pump gas for the thing. There's no self-service.
That's right.
So my dad was a workaholic. I mean, for him, when a car pulled on the lot to get gas, you had to ask them if they wanted to check the air in the tires. You had to ask them if they wanted to check the oil. You had to clean the windows. He didn't care if it was, negative 30 out. You were out there, you were doing it. And that's the bottom line. That's the service level that he required. There was no half stepping. So I learned service industry from that business. And again, my dad was just a tough old Italian guy, still is today. Even best running joke ever. Now I'm 56. For the past, I've been driving since I was 17. So 39 years, 40 years. Calls me up. First thing he says, have you checked the oil in your car? I said, no, Dad, it probably runs better 2 quarts low. Of course, yeah. And he's like, unbelievable.
Yeah, that drives me crazy.
I don't even know why I talk to you. Yeah. It's like, who cares about the oil in the car? We get it changed somewhere else. So that's the type of guy he was. But with that work ethic came a lot of life lessons that still hold true in this business today. And it pulled me aside and said, you know what? When you got to deliver bad news, you always deliver it with, right directly and then give people options. You need a new engine in your car. Here's what we can do. I can get this, I can get this, I can get this, I can get this, but there's no saving this one. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And you got to be direct. You got to be honest and you got to be fast with it. You don't want to jerk around and wait a month to deliver bad news because then you're losing confidence. And there's nothing with that. So I find that the practice of law kind of parallels that service business. Now, there were some strange characters who came in and out of that gas station. I'm not going to lie. Mm-hmm. And if I told you their names, you'd be like, oh, my gosh, what was going on here? But I had a very unusual childhood, very unusual. On Sundays, when people were going to church, we were going to see the bookie. Mm. So, that's the type of family we grew up in. But it all worked out perfect. I couldn't ask for anything better. And it all kind of led me to where I came up next. I mean, nobody ever anticipated me going to college. And then I moved to Florida and everybody down here was going to community college. And I was like, hey, what the heck? I'll give it a shot. Yeah, I did all right in high school. That led me to the next phase, which was law school. And the funny story there is across the street from the gas station, we're on a big 4-corner intersection in the middle of town. Across the street was a 7-Eleven. We used to get a Slurpee there if I earned a tip. Mm-hmm. I had to earn the tip before you get the Slurpee. Mm-hmm. You don't get the Slurpee just for being there. And then right next to it was a lawyer's office. And I'd say to my dad, how come people go to see the lawyer? They dress up, they're wearing their church clothes, their Sunday clothes. He goes, that's because, people are going there because they need help with their legal problems. And I was like, the heck's a legal problem? And he's like, people get themselves in trouble sometimes, or something happens and they need to see a lawyer and they want, they're showing the lawyer respect by showing up like that. He goes, but I said, well, what's the difference between us and a lawyer? And he goes, nothing. We just have different skill sets. When the lawyer needs somebody to fix his car, he calls me. When I need a legal problem handled, I call him. He goes, it's just what's in here. It's not what's in here and what's in here. But he goes, it really comes down to what's in your heart and what's in your head. And that's why I want you not to work with your hands. I want you to work with your head. And that was my dad's always his biggest rule. You know how to work with your hands, but work with your head and help people. And you'll always be in demand. And that was his number one rule. Don't work for a company, work for yourself, because people will always need and want your services if you can help them. Because if you go to work for a company, he goes, you become a cog in a wheel and you can't be yourself. You'll never achieve your full value in life if you're kind of boxed up by somebody else telling you what to do. And that always stuck with me as a kid. It always stuck with me. So here I am.
Great. Thanks. No, that's really good. No, I like that. So maybe if you could go back in time when you moved here and you started your practice, if you could maybe go back and talk to that younger Carmen, is there some advice you might give the younger you? Something you know now that you wish you knew when you started out?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm the type of guy who will work his way through anything. So if a client brings me a problem, I'm going to work until I solve that problem. That advice is good, but when you're starting a business and you're learning, everybody in the world wants to sell you the new latest widget. Mm-hmm. I was probably a little bit pig-headed because I'm an Italian from New Jersey, but a little bit pig-headed, and I wanted to do it all myself. I should have got a mentor, and I should have been willing to ask other people their advice, older attorneys who'd been through it. And that's what I do now is any young attorney who's going out on his own or any other business attorneys, I say, look, let's get together. Let's talk through your problems because I've made all the mistakes. Mm-hmm. I made them all. Trust me when I tell you, I made them all. And then I learned from them. But if I could save that person that one little mistake that may cost them tens of thousands of dollars because they did it this way when they should have done it that way, that's huge. That's huge. That's helping people in a way that, I was a little too stubborn to do it. But
so then how did you come to focus on your field of law? How did your area of practice? How did you come to focus on that? Was it a life event? Was it an encounter you had with somebody?
It's all been through learning and helping. And let me explain. When I started out doing personal injury work, and I loved it. I mean, you take people who've been through hell, car accidents, slip and falls, operations, doctor visits, and you're able to lead them down, make the insurance claim, and actually compensate them for what they've lost. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can do it, and it's great, and sometimes you just can't. There's limited insurance. You got somebody with $100,000 case, but there's only $25,000 of insurance, and there's nothing else you can do to help those persons. That eats me up inside. Okay. So while I was doing that, the firm I worked for, the only other firm I worked for before I started my own practice, hired a bankruptcy attorney. And that bankruptcy attorney came to my Fort Myers office and started taking in cases. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm good with that. No problem. Then she wouldn't call people back. Now, to me, that's a no-no. Mm-hmm. So you tell somebody you're going to do something, you better do it, period. There's no, you keep your word. Anyway, it got to be a revolving thing. And finally, I called my boss. He was up in Tampa. And I said, look, I'll learn how to do bankruptcy law. Just keep her away from my office because she's killing my business. And I'm trying to build a name for myself. I'm a young attorney out of school a year. I'm trying to work hard. I got other attorneys, trying to build a name for myself. And I've got this person now, people coming in the door saying, how come nobody's calling me back? And to me, that's unacceptable. So that's right about the time where I met my wife. And she couldn't understand while I was working 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, because I had to learn bankruptcy law. And bankruptcy law is not easy. So I'm like, totally stressed out, but I'm figuring it out. One day I'm in court and this other attorney says, well, let's take this case to trial. And I'm like, okay, I'm a trial attorney. This is what I do. Thinking everybody in bankruptcy court was a trial lawyer. That's not true. Most of those are transactional attorneys who don't know how to try a case. Mm-hmm. Well, once I said to the judge, yeah, I'm ready to try this case. Let's do it next week. The guy panicked. He actually had to be a trial lawyer and he didn't know how to do it. Light bulb. So what do? I start setting all my cases in bankruptcy court for trial, knowing that everybody's going to fold like dominoes. Mm-hmm. Dominance. I was like, I got this. And then the next thing that happened, I had a client call me back and he said, here's my situation. I was with my significant other for 17 years. I had the house in my name first. the deal always was, we're not married, but when I die, you get the house. Well, guess what happened? 17 years later, he dies. They're not married. He doesn't have a will. In come the two kids from California and say, yeah, we never liked her. We want the house.
Yeah.
And it cost the woman a fortune in legal fees to do this. So that's when I started planting a seed in my client's, head saying, hey, look, I just got you a big chunk of money for personal injury, or I just helped you get rid of your debts for bankruptcy. Let's do phase 2. Let's get the estate plan in place. Let's put a trust in place. If you have any worries about probate or this issue or that issue, let's get them on the table. Let's open it up for discussion and let's have a plan. And I wish I would have done it sooner because I knew better and I got all the attorneys, wrapped them in our conference room for our big meeting. I said, guys, this is something we got to do. We know better. We're smarter than this, and we let it happen to our clients. And to me, that's unacceptable, and it stops right now. Here's what we got to do. We got to get a wills, trust, and estates attorney, and it took off like wildfire. Now, a lot of our estate plans aren't these massive plans.
Yeah.
There's a few big plans. There's some other things, and there are some things I've even referred out because they were like just beyond my scope, saying, hey, you need some real serious planning. There's other attorneys who are like great at that. They handle the big plans. But for me, my clients need these plans going forward, the trust, the wills.
Core estate documents.
These core estate documents. And really, when they have kids going to college, those kids need plans too, believe it or not. The college thing, because once your kid turns 18 and goes to college, you can't make medical decisions for them anymore. What happens if? So there's a lot of things that we can do to help our clients go down the line that they're not super expensive, but they're things you don't think about in everyday life. And I deal with what happens when the proverbial poop hits the fan.
Yeah, when planning doesn't take place.
Correct, Chris. Exactly.
Yeah. So who do you maybe describe an ideal client for you? Not like a particular situation, but just ideal clients that you like to work with.
Okay. This is going to sound very bizarre. Personal injury, it's easy. It's easy. I took in a case yesterday, 3 women in a car hit by a drunk driver. Those women were just pounded. They don't know what to do. They don't know how the insurance companies work, and they just need help. More than happy to help them. The other ones is people coming into me, like I just talked to a woman this morning, her and her husband, been through a lot of medical bills, $65,000 in medical debt, and there's no way to pay for it. There's just no way they're going to pay for it in this lifetime. So we talked about filing a bankruptcy for them, getting them out from the debt so they can enjoy their life debt-free. But in the older generation, well, we're talking the golden age, like 70s, 75, those people don't believe in the word bankruptcy. They were taught to pay. Then you got the younger generation, and they're taught to ask for money from the older generation, and those people want to help their families.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of horror stories there. And my job is to help them get back to financial feasibility. When it comes to the estate planning, those are kind of fun because those are people now who have achieved certain levels of success, and now they're planning what they want to do with that money that they've accumulated, the houses they've accumulated, the assets, and who they want them to go to. And more importantly, who they don't want it to go to, which is always interesting to me, the family dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah. And that could be all over the place.
Oh, yeah. You have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I have a little bit because I get into those estate planning conversations with clients and talking about beneficiary designations and wanting their wishes to be, worked out when they're gone. So, yeah, I'm right with you there on some bizarre stuff. So what do you think people can expect when they work with you? I know on your website, you put a lot of effort into kind of like talking about your process. So why is that and consistent communication really important with clients?
Because to me, go back to my roots. The communication is key to building trust in a relationship. How many people can actually go to their mechanic now and trust that this guy's not trying to work on commission, or he's had a slow week and now he's got to, sell you parts that maybe your car doesn't need just yet. And if you've read any of my books, I put in the example of a lot of attorneys are bankruptcy attorneys. They're not consumer protection attorneys. So if you go there and you need an oil change, but they only sell motors, guess what you're going to get? You're not going to get the oil change. The motor job is more expensive than the oil change. And that's what my dad used to teach me. He goes, when people come in, if they say they need a motor, but all they need is an oil change, all we're going to do is do an oil change. They may need a motor in a year, but for today, we're going to do that job to get it done right. We're not going to put, brakes on a car if they don't need it. We're not going to do a tune-up if it doesn't need it. We're going to keep it as cheap as possible for them, but warn them of what might come in the future. You're going to need tires eventually, but not right now. Stuff like that. And to me, that's what we do here. So, for example, personal injury clients. When a personal injury client comes in, they might not be able to work for a month. So they're worried, how am I going to pay my bills? What about this? We can help them with that. When a bankruptcy client comes in, some of those people turn into personal injury clients later. And when a financial estate planning client comes in, who's been through some trauma, or at least they know they have us as a resource to talk to if something happens to their children. So all the knowledge that we've built up and stored in our brains, we make it available to people through our website, through our newsletter, through email blasts that we send out to people, letting them know that use us as a resource. We're not going to, if I pick up the phone and I refer you to a family law attorney, I'm not going to charge people for that, because I want to make sure our clients not only have accessibility to us, but accessibility to the best attorneys in town. And after being here 25 years, I kind of know the good ones and I kind of know the bad ones. And I would never want to send my family member to a bad attorney.
Right. Yeah. Like somebody you care about. You want them to have a good experience and get the right outcome. Okay. Awesome. Now, you also make a point on your website about how having a healthy firm culture contributes to your client's success. I thought that was interesting. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it all goes back to taking care of the people that take care of you. I can't ask anybody to do anything for a client that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. So that's where it starts. The buck stops with me. There's no job here that I won't do to help people. It's not like I won't pick up the phone and call a client. That's ridiculous. It's not beneath me. Taking out the trash is not beneath me, because that's the kind of person I am. But when people see that and they see how we help people, they want to be part of it. And that's what I like. We hire around our core values. And we fire around our core values. If you say you're an honest person, you turn out not to be an honest person, you have no place here. And that's just the way it is. If you don't return phone calls, you have no place here. And that's just, I want to work with people who push me every day. And I can't ask that if I'm not pushing them every day. So and again, I'm not against overtime when it's necessary, but at 5 o'clock, I want everybody out the door. You've got a life, you got a family, and they need you. Staying here, nobody needs you here. You got to go. And I tell them all that. You got to go. You got a life outside of work. I want your brain from 8 to 5. And then after that, forget about this place. Go enjoy your life.
I think it's been said, you want to get the right people on the bus.
Yep.
The passengers that you have on there, the right people, they're in the right seats.
Yep.
For their skill sets.
Well, you think about it. I go back to the rowing. I always use the rowing thing. You ever watch rowing? Especially in Sarasota, rowing's huge, right? You got that big course up there.
Yeah.
You get that. What happens if one guy's rowing in the wrong direction? Disaster. It's a cancer you got to eradicate.
Yeah. We can't be going in the wrong direction.
No. And again, it works better when everybody's on the same team and pushing themselves.
Yeah. All rowing in the same direction. I like that. So I'm sure with the areas of law that are your main focuses, when people come into you for initial appointments or talk to you, they have some common fears or concerns
always
that you encounter. So maybe take me through a few of those. I imagine okay, well, this is the outcome I'm desiring, or I just don't want this to happen, or, I really want to avoid this if possible.
Yeah, and it can go down to, let's use the estate planning clients, because they're really the ones who are making decisions, and they really have a lot of choices. They can make certain things happen, and some of them, they don't want to provide for their kids at all. They want to provide for their grandkids. So, the kids got enough over their years. I want to make sure my grandchildren are taken care of. How do I make that happen? Or how can I make this happen? And really, I ask a lot of questions. So you can tell I like to talk a little bit. But the more important thing for me is gathering information. So I get them talking. And then they open up and they tell me what what do you want to accomplish for the rest of your life? Is there anything you really want to do? Tell me about it. What do you want for your grandchildren? Well, I want to make sure there's enough money for them to go to school and not have student loans. You'd be surprised at how many people say that to me.
Yeah,
I want to make sure that there's enough money there so that they don't have to worry about student loans, because it's a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're saying, if they want to go to Harvard, they can pay for that for themselves. But if they want to go to a normal school, then,
Right.
I want to make sure I can provide for that. So do I do it by gifting? Do I do it by, an insurance policy? Do I do it with this? Do I do it with a trust? And I like those questions because it really gets my juices flowing of how I can make their dreams happen, so that when they put their head in bed, or when they go to bed at night, if they don't wake up tomorrow, they know that all their things are taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's really important to me, that we cross the T's and we dot the I's.
Yeah, I get it's a kind of peace of mind is what it is.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah. I think of it with clients as we're working through this list of action items where you're doing well, but you have some gaps in your planning. And so we need to shore up these gaps. We need to take care of these things. And core estate documents oftentimes is a lot of the missing stuff that's occurring. For whatever reason, they think, oh, I don't have enough money to do that, or, I'll be dead, so I won't care. All those excuses that you hear. And we got to shore that stuff up.
And to me, it's kind of funny because I say, you see all these law books behind me, they're not here now, but they're filled with stories of people who said that'll never happen.
Right.
And then guess what happened? It happened.
Yeah, but it did. Right. Okay. So I know in your role, you help people get through some pretty big life transitions. I mean, the personal injury side or the bankruptcy, these can be emotional events. So I'm curious, how do you help de-stress the process with people?
Okay.
How do you go about doing that?
Communication, a lot of communication. So we stress communication. Even if there's nothing going on, we're going to call you and say, how are you doing? How are you getting through? I mean, think of it this way. This year already alone, we've had 2 wrongful deaths on motorcycle cases. Okay. Instantaneously, dad's not coming home to dinner, just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough. That's real tough, because all of a sudden your life changed in the blink of an eye. And now you've got funeral arrangements. You've got to worry about how the mortgage is being paid. You got to be like, is the insurance going to pay this? How much insurance was there? And you don't have time for the grieving process. So for us, it's important that we know that, all right, our clients are going to have a real tough time. What can we do to make their life easier? What can we do? What actions can we take that they're not anticipating that we're going to make their life easier? Mm-hmm. And that's really the key to getting done what we do. If you're just if you want to go to a big law firm, you have that right. And I'm never going to tell anybody, don't go to a big law firm if you think they're going to do a better job. I would never, if that's what you want, you go for it. But those big law firms, those attorneys work on quotas. They have certain numbers they have to hit. Mm-hmm. I don't have to worry about that in my business. If I want to make an extra 5 phone calls to clients who might need me that night, I call my wife. I say, honey, I'm going to be a little late. I got to make these 5 phone calls just to check in on these clients. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the difference. And that's how we built our business. You don't see me on every billboard in town. You don't see me on TV yelling and wagging a finger. You don't see me with these stupid jingles that attorneys have. I call them jingle attorneys. Why? Because I don't spend all my time making commercials. I spend my time working on my clients' files and talking to my clients. They're the people that matter to me. They're going to matter to me before they're injured. They're going to matter to me after they're injured. And they're going to be friends of the firm for the rest of their lives, hopefully. Yeah. I mean, our mailing list is huge, and we send out a monthly newsletter to all of them. And I get some great feedback from the newsletter, just saying, thank you. I love your newsletter. It's just a matter of staying in touch. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest source of our referrals from past clients.
Yep. Yeah. It well, really and you've got the intersection of the estate planning and the bankruptcy. And I can especially see with the personal injury, if they've been awarded some kind of settlement, and that could be a large amount of money that they've ever had, you obviously want them to make good decisions with that so they have a good life going forward. And the estate planning is part of that for sure.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting close to the end. I have a few questions that I want to ask. I want to change gears a little bit. So in your opinion, Carmen, what do you kind of see as the biggest opportunity for your firm, for the practice going forward?
That's a great question. And I see it as being able to put my expansion plans on steroids. Okay.
Okay.
But again, it comes down to having the fundamentals. With the advent of COVID, everybody learned you can work from home. At our busiest office for foot traffic was our Fort Myers office. We'd have 60 people walking in a day just to talk. I have 2 girls up front just to handle the workflow, just to handle the people coming in the door. Now it might be 10. We have an office in Orlando and Tampa. I haven't been to those offices in over a year because everybody does everything online. Our Port Charlotte office is now our busiest office for foot traffic, and that's because it's an older generation.
Yeah.
So for us, it was adapting to that, learning from the technology, and then applying that technology and putting it on steroids. So there's clients now that we have, they never come in the office, which was 3 years ago unheard of. But we've learned to adapt to that. I had to adapt to it because I like sitting across the conference table from somebody and saying, you know what, I can help you. Now I got to do it through Zoom or by phone. Right. But everybody's learned to adapt to that. So how do we expand on that and make it better? Well, you stay on top of technology and you work with your clients to make sure that they are not left behind, because there's people we deal with in their 70s who are not as technologically advanced. And then there's young clients who are teaching us things, saying, why don't you do it this way? It's so much faster. And you're like, wow, this kid's good. It's learning from them about being open to learning. That's one of the things you got to be in this business, learning to open. You don't just live in a box anymore and knowledge comes to it. Now it's out there and you got to go get it. That's number one. Number two, I think it's just, for me now, sharing what we've learned with others so they don't make the same mistakes, because that's really important to me now.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I've had a chance to mentor advisors and things of that nature. That's my biggest piece of advice is find a mentor, find somebody you're comfortable with that has the experience that can help you. Your learning curve will go much faster if you do that rather than trying to be out on an island. Yeah, okay. Definitely. Well, maybe on the flip side of that, Carmen, I asked you about your opportunity. So what do you think is maybe your biggest challenge or obstacle that you want to overcome, like for the firm to overcome, or your practice, your business?
You know what I see a lot of? I see a lot of younger attorneys cutting their fees to try to get business. And when I tell people this all the time, I'm not the cheapest guy in town, but you're going to get Cadillac services and you're going to be grateful because you're going to say, wow, how does this guy do all this for this amount of money? When you cut fees, you cut services. And what you do is you build an animosity with your clients, because I hear attorneys all the time in court and otherwhere just saying, oh man, I hate my clients. They drive me nuts. They do this. You got to set expectations from the beginning and say, here's what you're going to get for what you do it. And if you don't believe you're going to get these services, read the reviews. The reviews don't lie. The reviews will tell you if an attorney is not living up to his end of the bargain. If an attorney doesn't have fantastic reviews from his clients, you need to find another attorney. But when you're jumping out of an airplane, you don't buy your parachute at Walmart.
Right. Yeah.
I love Walmart. Don't get me wrong. I'm not bashing Walmart, but if I'm jumping out of an airplane, I want the best parachute I can freaking buy.
Yeah. Or maybe 2 Walmart parachutes.
2 Walmart
if you double up
the backup.
Then you just use them both at the same time. You'll probably be okay.
I had a phone rep one time tell me, well, here's what you do. You buy our service, and if we go down, then you have to buy the second service. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's like telling people you have one attorney, but if he screws up, then you have another attorney on retainer. That's ridiculous.
Right.
What kind of sale is that? I said, get out. You got to go. You got to go.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
You don't want to do that with brain surgery or transplant or anything like that.
Not even close. For me, it's kind of funny. I love coming to work every day. I love helping people and the people I meet. Unfortunately, they're going through some tough times. But, my personal why is I like to provide hope when people think they've lost it. I want to be there for them, to be that the guy holding the flashlight saying, see that light at the end of the tunnel? That's our path, and this is where we're going.
Yeah. Yeah. Able to get some closure and move on with their life. Right. Okay, so if people want to learn more about you or contact you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Greatest part about me, Kris, I got a very unique name, Carmen Dellutri. There's not many Dellutris in the world, so if you Google Carmen Dellutri, or if you go to our website, www.dellutrilawgroup.com, it's easy to get in touch with us at any of our offices, and we'll be there for you when you need us, I promise.
Okay. Fantastic. I encourage everyone to go there. Listen, Carmen, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. This was a pleasure, very informative. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors. where we hope to raise the financial aptitude of everyday people to another level, one show at a time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Be well. Take care. Carmen, thanks again.
Nice meeting you, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care. We'll see everybody next time.
You've been listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast with Kris and Mark from LPF Advisors. For more information on them and retiring confidently, please visit lpfadvisors.com. If your ears are pleased and your mind is now at ease, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.